Welcome, everyone, to the opening right now of the Q&A. We are here at the Outshine Virtual LGBTQ Film Festival, and our opening tonight for Los Fuertes, an incredible film that takes place in Chile. You guys just watched it. We have the talent for the film with us, but before we get to the talent, we're going to do a very quick welcome to our community sponsor. You all know that we do community sponsors on a very regular basis because our community sponsors make us stronger when we work together as a community. And tonight, one of my favorite organizations, Latino Salud.
It's an honor to be part of a community and to be involved in the community in a way that we're making an impact.
When I hear that I'm an essential worker, I take that as being a person of value. And I think that's very important to let our clients know during these times of uncertainty that we are still open. And aside from testing, that we have other services available for them if they choose to seek them.
La gente se impactaba al escuchar que Latino Salud estaba abierto. Latino Salud siempre estuvo al margen y mantuvo siempre su visión de ayudar siempre a la comunidad, y más aún en tiempo de pandemia y de la gran crisis que estamos viviendo hoy en día.
So we are seeing a new group of people, especially with our new PrEP clinic. There's a lot more interest in the community to access the services.
Tuvimos un cliente que necesitaba su medicamento ya que era reactivo y gracias a que estuvimos abiertos estos días, él pudo conseguir su medicamento. Así que sí veo necesario que estén abiertas las oficinas para poder seguir ayudando a nuestra comunidad.
Varias personas fueron beneficiadas y pudieron adquirir sus medicamentos para tratar las enfermedades de transmisión sexual y el VIH. Es por eso que me siento feliz de formar parte de esa gran familia de Latino Salud.
We're providing hand sanitizer, measuring people's temperature at the door, and we're also providing face masks to anyone who needs.
We disinfect each testing desk after a client's visit and limit the amount of clients that are in the office at a time.
After a long day at work, I try to meditate and stretch at home.
I really enjoy, taking a bath. That gives me a lot of energy.
Personally, I think fitness is very important for me just because it helps clear my mind and get ready for the next day. So fitness is number one for me.
Besides my health, I feel that I'm absolutely grateful for having an opportunity to help others. In this time and age when everything is being shutting down and everything is so uncertain, knowing that we can make a difference is something to be grateful.
It is easy to lose sight of the things that we have lost during these times, but it's important to still, while practicing social distancing, to go outside, be with your loved ones as long as you're in a safe space. I think that's very important, just to remind yourselves that there are things that are good going on in the world, and just to keep moving forward, because that's all you can do at the end of the day.
Another amazing virtual night with another incredible virtual film, Los Fuertes. We are so honored to have with us the director, Omar Zuniga, Samuel González, and Antonio Altamirano, both of the actors from the film, and translating for us where needed, Juan Francisco Hidalgo. Thank you all. Welcome, everybody. So glad to have you.
Hello.
So I have to tell all of you that I absolutely loved your film. I thought it was shot beautifully. Some of the landscape, whoever you had as your director of photography or your cinematographer did an amazing job. So let's start with you, Omar, and talk about how you chose the locations for the various shots in the film, because some of them were really staggering.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Outshine, for having us. Thank you, Mark, for this Q&A. we, since I first started thinking of the film, I knew that I wanted it to take place in southern Chile. This idea of this atmosphere that's, you know, surrounded by fog, by the ocean, by the rivers, by the forests, and this very special landscape. And it also has a very specific culture of stoicism and warmth that people have. And all these things were certainly the atmosphere that I wanted the film to have. And as it kept going, we decided to shoot in this area, in the Los Rios region in southern Chile, that's marked by these rivers and the ocean. And it also features this really specific set of buildings that were built during colonial times by the Spanish, these forts that are all around the bay, that were very strategic back then, you know, during the Spanish conquest, and that they were after, you know, that after, you know, were very important in the process of independence. And I think that these spaces and the idea of the forts had an echo with the relationship that we see between Lucas and Antonio, and the idea of resilience and how they, like the forts, resist all the waves that are crashing against them. And there was something about that space and that atmosphere that I felt echoed the characters and what they were going through, and this idea of resilience and independence and also this feeling of this very specific geography. So that's why we decided to set the film there.
Well, it's even more special, of course, to one of your actors, Samuel. That's your hometown, right? What was it like working in your hometown? Did you help out with different topographies, with different geographies? Were you able to pick different locations? And did you know people at the various shoots? Juan, you might want to translate all that.
Sí. Entonces, Samuel, definitivamente esto también tiene una significancia especial para ti porque es tu pueblo natal. ¿Cómo fue para ti filmar en tu pueblo y, digamos, te tocó contribuir, digamos, con elegir los lugares para las tomas o tu conocimiento de la ciudad, o gente que quizás conocías por ahí? ¿Te tocó como recomendar ese tipo de cosas?
Sí, quizás un poquito. Omar al comienzo me hizo varias preguntas, trabajamos como bastante tiempo en conjunto. No sé si tomé decisiones, pero evidentemente pude reconocer muchos lugares que son lugares que yo he visitado desde niño, con los cuales me reencontré en esta película, y creo que eso fue muy potente, muy bonito para mí. Hubieron locaciones que conocía desde hace mucho tiempo y que no sabía que iban a ser esas, y cuando llegó el momento de grabar ciertas escenas y encontrarme con esos lugares, sin duda me reencontré también con mi pasado, con mi historia, y fue maravilloso. Como creo que fue un sueño cumplido poder grabar una película en mi ciudad, en mi territorio, con muchos amigos en el equipo técnico, con mucha gente que conozco desde hace años. Así que fue muy bonito poder reencontrarme con esos lugares a través de una película.
So yeah, maybe a little more in the beginning. You know, Omar and I, we would consult and discuss several of the aspects, though I didn't really necessarily make a lot of the decisions, but I was able to recognize a lot of the places that I had visited in my youth, which I also had the opportunity to sort of re-encounter, right? And that experience was certainly very powerful. And I didn't necessarily know that those were the places where some of the shots were going to be taken, but it felt in many ways like I was re-encountering my own past and my own history. So I definitely have to say it is a dream come true to be able to film in my city, you know, with so many friends on the technical team, so many people that I've known and worked with in the past. It was definitely wonderful and beautiful. Oh, Mark, you're muted.
Está silenciado, Mark.
You're muted.
Mark, your
you're muted, Mark.
microphone.
I did that. You're the best interpreter. You're the best interpreter that I've ever worked with. Normally, you get a interpreter, and so the person goes and they give this long answer, and the interpreter goes, "They really liked everything." And you go, "What?" You know. So a follow up, Samuel, for those of us that aren't from Chile, which is probably everybody listening. What is LGBTQ life open and accepted where you were? It looks like a fairly remote city, but you know, it's hard to tell. How is LGBTQ life there?
Entonces, Samuel, como una pregunta así como de seguimiento, para muchas personas que están viendo esto seguramente no son de Chile. La pregunta es, ¿cómo es la vida LGBTQ en el sur de Chile, digamos? ¿Es abierto y aceptado donde tú vivías? Y, porque si bien se ve como una ciudad bastante remota, uno nunca sabe. Entonces, quizá un poco preguntar cómo se vive esa parte de la vida.
Sí, yo creo que, claro, lo que muestra la película igual es un lugar apartado como de la ciudad, Valdivia, que es como la ciudad, el lugar más urbano. Sin embargo, creo que la ciudad en sí ha tenido un avance tremendo en cómo la comunidad LGBTQ se ha podido expandir, expresar, poder ser, ser con más libertad, poder expresarse de una manera mucho más abierta. Que hace, no sé, 10, 15 años atrás, en que todo era mucho más tabú, todo era mucho más tapado, más complejo de aceptar o de tolerar. Creo que hoy existen espacios, existen bares, existen discotecas, distintos lugares en los cuales se concentra o se agrupa gran cantidad de la diversidad sexual y no existe ningún problema con eso, al contrario. Ha habido una apertura mental y social en cuanto a la diversidad sexual y creo que eso está muy bueno. He podido ver esa evolución también y es muy bonito de ver cómo se han abierto espacios, se han abierto mentes y creo que la película también juega un rol importante en eso. Estaba el cortometraje antes y ahora la película, ambos se rodaron acá en Valdivia y sin duda ha generado reflexión y debate en torno a cómo sucede una historia de amor entre dos hombres en esta ciudad, al sur de Chile. También creo que deben haber y existe mucha homofobia, que es algo que está presente siempre, lamentablemente, pero creo que se está avanzando y creo que están habiendo cambios bastante importantes.
So I think that the movie definitely sort of portrays a setting that's very sort of remote from the urban areas of Valdivia, the city where it was shot. But definitely, the city has shown progress in regards to how the community has been allowed to express itself. It's definitely more open and more free than what it was, say, 15 years ago, when everything was a little bit more taboo, maybe undercover. It was complex to accept or to tolerate. So nowadays, of course, there's all sorts of spaces, bars, discotheques, where there's definitely a concentration of a large amount of diversity in terms of sexual orientation and gender identity, and there's no problem with that. In fact, it's actually been very encouraged. You know, there's been a lot of openness socially towards sexual diversity, right? I've been able to see this evolution, and it's actually quite beautiful how not just minds are opened, but also spaces, right? So the movie definitely plays a role, not just the full feature length movie, but also the shorts, right? Because they were both filmed in the city, and they have generated all sorts of reflection and debate around how a love story happens between two men in the south of Chile. So of course, you know, there may always be homophobia. It's always, you know, kind of been present, but there's definitely progress being made.
Aquí también, for sure. Antonio, your character has so much depth to it. When you were given the script and you read the script, what did you think when you first read through it?
Entonces, Antonio, tu personaje en particular tenía un nivel de profundidad impresionante. ¿Cuáles fueron tus primeras reacciones al leer el guión y mientras entendías el personaje por primera vez?
Sí, una cosa quizás para complementar también a lo que mencionaba Samuel, que igual Valdivia se caracteriza independiente de todos los lugares maravillosos que tiene, pero tiene un festival de cine, precisamente, que hace muy rico tener un posicionamiento muy fuerte de todo un equipamiento técnico, audiovisual, muy experto al respecto. Entonces hay un festival de cine que ya lleva 26, 24 años, entonces eso también ha generado toda una particularidad de que ha generado una industria también del cine en Valdivia, y eso creo que es muy importante destacarlo, digo yo, como siendo un país chileno, una característica bien particular de generar todo en el centro, en Chile, en Santiago. Pero volviendo quizás a la pregunta que me hacía Mark, que yo creo que fue bastante importante leer el primer proceso, que también fue un corto antes de hacer la película, y que claramente hubo un gran cambio de varios procesos, pero sobre todo al basarse que es una historia de amor, para mí lo más principal es un pescador, un trabajador de la zona, y cómo poder tratar de incluir ciertas capas de lo que genera un pescador en una zona que tiene para la cultura, en ese caso de un pueblo, una vida quizás que no es tan abierta en algunos aspectos muy personales. Y eso quizás le da bastantes capas, me imagino yo. Y también la guía maravillosa de Omar y de todo el equipo, que también hace que todo salga lo más, quizás con todas esas capas posibles, más claras en realidad. No sé si respondo un poco la pregunta.
Sí, está perfecto. So, something that he just wants to say, complementing what was mentioning Samuel before, was that, the city of Valdivia is also, beyond just its landscapes, is also super well known because it has a very rich film festival there that has been going on for more than 20 years, which means that there's sort of an entire sort of film industry in Valdivia. So you have a lot of technical capacity, you have a lot of human capital that's very well prepared to shoot all sorts of movies, and this is a particular departure from how centralized maybe the economic activity can be in Chile. The country can be very centralized, especially in Santiago, which is the capital. There was also, so moving on to the bulk of the question, there was definitely a step change from the filming of the short to the full feature film, right? So because this was a love story, for me, what was really important was to also acknowledge that we are talking about a fisherman who is originally from this area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I really wanted to include all the different layers that you might be able to see from somebody, not just from a love story perspective, but also as a fisherman, also as, being part of a town whose culture might not be so open to these other aspects of his life. So I think that's what allows the character to be so layered. And also, of course, I have to acknowledge the wonderful guidance that Omar and the rest of the team were able to provide to just really make the character come to life. And you're muted, Mark. Mark, you're still muted.
David, there you go, David. You did it brilliantly, Antonio, and I love the way you showed the depth of the character. And I want to go to that, Omar, with you for a minute and talk about that first scene, the first kind of love scene, or I shouldn't say love scene, actually just the first kiss between Samuel and Antonio, because there was some tension that was going on right before that. And, that when they went into that kiss, how did you set that scene up? And what were you looking for the actors in that scene? Comprende?
Yeah, no, I do. I'm thinking just a second. I think sorry. We wanted the relationship to feel very authentic and to feel that it would progress slowly throughout the film. And that first moment, that kind of like impromptu, kind of like improvised date between the forts and eating and going into the truck, it was to me this afternoon that they kind of spent together, and I feel like throughout the afternoon you get the sense that something might be happening there, and something that we, I guess, wanted to play was the idea they jump into this love without hesitation. And there was something very bold and striking in that first kiss that we wanted to achieve, and it's something that we discussed, the three of us, like how to stage it and how to play it, and they had this really intense and starting connection. And I feel like that kiss is just a first example of that. And shooting it, well, we shot it. It was complicated. There was rain involved. We in this truck, we wanted to feel this rain outside this area. It's like it's very defined by the rain. It rains all the time. It rains like very strongly, and I wanted this idea of the rain in the windshield behind them since the script, and we were able to stage it and to play it. And I guess we didn't do as many takes, and it worked out great.
Well, when they were in bed together, I couldn't help but to have to ask this question. There they are, both naked. It's a very sensual scene. How hard was it to cast somebody with a scar?
It was really funny, actually, because everything is written with everything you see is written. There's no improvisation in the film. Very little, just like a couple moments. But we were in pre-production, and I was with the art and makeup team, and we were like, okay, we should test this car, and we should like try what this car looks like, and we should test it on Samuel and whatever. And Samuel is like, wait, but I have a scar, like I got my appendix removed. And I was like, really? And then like so that's Samuel's actual scar that he actually has. So it was lovely.
It worked out great.
Yeah, it worked out great, but I didn't know that he had it, so it was like a surprise.
Antonio, what was different for you from doing the short to doing the full feature? And what did Omar bring out in you that you didn't think you had inside as an actor?
Yo creo que, o sea, quizás lo que hace la diferencia quizás es que, claro, con el tiempo del corto y quizás del largo también hay una cosa bastante natural, que todos nosotros crecimos también un poco, pasó un tiempo, pero eso permitió una experiencia bastante rica, sobre todo en el equipo que también pudo trabajar de antes, cosa que hubo una manera también de poder profundizar ciertas escenas, que yo creo que al tener ya un trabajo previo, por ejemplo, de haber tenido ya un trabajo en el corto de 5 años atrás o 4 y después llegar al largo, permitió tener mucha confianza, y eso fue, creo que abrió muchas posibilidades de seguir profundizando, y también estuvimos bastante también comunicados y en contactos con Samuel y con Omar. Entonces eso también creo que el país también cambió mucho en ese pequeño periodo de tiempo, pero permitió la posibilidad de seguir profundizando. Quizás si hay alguna diferencia entre el corto y entre ambos procesos, diría yo que, bueno, el corto también se hizo con muy pocos recursos, pero pasaba muy desapercibido eso. Entonces también creo que eso también habla de un gran proceso que significa tener el largo, más presupuesto, más tiempo, más equipo, pero diría yo que esas dos como pueden ser las grandes diferencias, la posibilidad también de mantener un equipo en el tiempo. Por ejemplo, el mismo director de fotografía, el director de arte, se mantuvieron, y eso también genera una mayor profundidad y tranquilidad al momento de generar escenas más complejas.
Juan?
Yep. So maybe something that we noticed was causing a lot, or was creating a lot of the difference, was the time between, when we filmed the short and the full feature film. Well, first of all, because there was a time that elapsed between both of them, we all sort of grew up a little. We've all sort of matured since then. There was some time that passed, and this allowed a bit of a much more rich experience, especially being able to have a team that has worked together before, right? There was a way where we were able to go deeper on a lot of the scenes that we had already worked on maybe 4 or 5 years prior, which allowed us to have a lot of confidence and trust, and opened a lot of possibilities around what we wanted to go deeper on in the full feature film. And so during this time, I was also in constant contact with Samuel and Omar. And of course, even though, it was only 4 or 5 years that passed, we perceived that the country had changed a lot in that short time span, which also gave us sort of a direction as to where we wanted to go deeper on. um, Differences in the process as well. I would highlight that the short was made with very few resources, right? And even though that sort of flies under the radar a little bit, this time the fact that we were able to have more time, we were able to have the team for longer, created a lot of big differences to be able to maintain this team over time. And we were able to work with the same director of photography, the same art director as before, so that was um, definitely a factor that contributed to creating deeper scenes, and also a lot of like peace and calm as we were shooting some of these more complex scenes.
Y para ti, Samuel, you're muted.
Mute someone. Ahí sí.
¿Cómo no? ¿Ahora sí? ¿Todo bien? Yo creo que son varias cosas, porque el cortometraje, por el formato que tiene, que es una película más corta, evidentemente limita o hace que todo sea más breve o con menos profundidad. En la película hay un salto gigante en cuanto a la construcción de los personajes, a los personajes secundarios que aparecen y que rodean a estos dos protagónicos, que a nosotros como actores que llevábamos la historia con Antonio, creo que también nos nutre mucho y nos amplía el mundo de cómo estos personajes viven su romance y cómo se relacionan con el entorno. Creo que el rol de la abuela, de la hermana de Lucas, son dos personajes súper potentes que también van sumando nuevas capas y otras historias paralelas que siento que nutren mucho y hacen que esta historia y este romance tenga otras aristas y otras cosas que van sucediendo en paralelo, que sin duda hicieron que todo fuera más fuerte, literalmente. Además, como decía Antonio, estábamos nosotros más grandes, el equipo estaba mucho más afiatado, en particular Omar, yo y Antonio llevamos muchos años trabajando en este proyecto, por ende creo que lo pudimos abordar con mayor madurez, pese a que fue un desafío constante, había una madurez y una preparación de bastante tiempo, y eso creo que en la película se ve y nos dio un espacio para poder profundizar y para poder trabajar con la energía y con la organicidad que se necesitaba, y creo que eso está totalmente logrado en la película.
So there's several things, right? So for example, in the short version of the film, because of its format, it's naturally very brief, and it limits the amount of depth that you can create in a character. So when we were going to the full feature, the full length feature, there was a very noticeable leap in the depth of the construction of the characters, and also the fact that we were able to go deeper on some of the secondary or support characters involved. So for Antonio and I, that would really nourish us, right? And nourish the interpretation of how these two live their romance, surrounded by their environment, right? So Lucas's sister and grandmother, they also, begin to add layers to the story, right? And other parallel stories were also giving this romance a lot more nuance to it, right? And several more layers, which made the romance itself so much stronger, right? And so Antonio also mentioned this. We are a bit older, right? We grew up a little bit between the short and the full feature, or the full length feature. Omar, Antonio, and I, we had been working on this for a while now, and the fact that we were able to work with the same team who had been able to create and perpetuate this bond through the first short created a lot of maturity over time, and that is really evident in the movie, right? It gave us really the space and this energy to go a lot deeper on, and this was possible because we had this whole organization that had been nurtured for a long time. Oh, you're muted, Mark.
That muted thing's going to kill all of us today. Dino wanted to ask a question, and I don't see where he is in the room. If David, if you could let Dino in to ask a question, please. Hey, Dino. Dino's one of our fellow board members.
Hey, you guys. Hola, ¿cómo están? Nada, quería felicitarlos. Me gustó mucho la película. Muy tierna y muy bien hecha y muy impactante la relación de los dos personajes. Y sabemos que Chile tiene muy buena tradición con películas en el festival y han traído películas buenísimas al festival que han hecho muy buen papel en el festival. Entonces, quería saber cómo la película de ustedes, con la tradición que tiene Chile en películas de este género, de LGBT, qué recepción ha tenido en Chile y cómo ha sido el financiamiento de la película y si han tenido buena aceptación en el público en Chile. Si quieres lo traduzco yo mismo. Tú me dirás, I just wanted to ask you guys, since we have a long tradition of Chilean films in the festival, and many good films had come from Chile to the festival and done very well here, such as Una Mujer Fantástica. We saw The Prince recently. Many good films coming from Chile. I wanted to know in this genre of films, the LGBT films in Chile, how has your film been received and the financing of the film? Are you getting help from the government, or how is that the acceptance of your film in Chile, and have you shown it in Chile yet?
Well, thank you, Dino. The film, there's a great film industry in Chile. There's great talent coming out of the country, many amazing films and stories and very different voices. There's a very eclectic range of films that are coming out, and I think many of them are really great. So it's in a way, we do have some public funding that depends on the government and like the Ministry of Culture, and it's extremely competitive because there are many great projects coming out of the country. So it's very hard to get. It's not like automatic or too easy. And we managed to, eventually, after a few attempts, to secure this fund for our film, for this film, the one that you just saw. And that allowed us to shoot the film and to produce most of it. And then we also got some funds from from a US-based initiative, the NYU Production Lab. I went to NYU in New York for grad school, and they have this amazing program where they would invest in some films from alumni. So shout out, hi, NYU Production Lab, if you're watching. And the two of us, those two things allowed us to shoot the film, and that was how we set it up. And then publicly, the film premiered in Valdivia, which is this film festival that we were talking about, and it was the opening film last year, and it was received very warmly, and it was great to start there because it was where we shot the film, and we could share it with the people who were in it, like, technical crew and actors and everything. So that was an amazing experience to be able to premiere there. Samuel was there with his parents. Everybody was there with their family. It was really great. And then we were in theaters this March, a few months after, and then the pandemic hit. So we were in theaters for like a week, and then things went awry, as we all know, and so all theaters closed, and we decided to go online as fast as we could. So we set it up in an online VOD system within Chile that was warmly received, and in general, I feel like we've gotten really warm reactions from people, and it's really gratifying. One of the things that I'm mostly interested in is, of course, representing our stories and our love and our bravery. And the film really celebrates this bravery and celebrates this idea of like how they stand up for themselves and how they resist anything that can go against them in the world around them. And I think that's empowering, and I think that's something that many people can identify with currently today in Chile. So it's been really warmly received. We get all these messages from all over the country. One of the things about going online that, I mean, you must have experienced it with the festival this year, and this strange year for all of us. But one of the benefits of going online is that many more people can access to it. And like, the film has been seen by people who wouldn't have a theater in their little town, and they could watch it online. And that, made us feel that much closer together. And I feel like that has been a great experience. And just recently, this past few days, there's like a state-owned VOD platform that they, they put some films up for people to watch, and it's free for the people who watch it because it's like state-owned and it's not like a private company. And it got sold out in just like a few days. So people were really, we're really wanting to see it, and it was a really sweet situation that just happened a couple of days ago. So we're happy that it's continued to travel like here and other places, and we hope that it can continue to identify people and to resonate with people, not only just in Chile but in other places as well.
And I think it's even more important to have these Spanish language films as well, because so much of that audience, especially here, maybe not in Miami, but all over where people won't go to a festival, won't go to a public viewing point, they're able to sit in their own living room and see a tremendous film like this.
Thank you. Yeah, the film was also released in VOD in Argentina, where we got like some great reviews and great comments, and here, and then it's traveling to some other places.
Dino, would you take this next question, please, from the audience?
Yes. And they're asking where you can get the shore. Where can you have access to the shore?
Well, sadly, we can't make it public because of some authorizations with some music and some issues. But it did travel a lot back then. So I am sorry that we can share it with people, but I think that they're very different projects, and I think that this film just explores this idea of bravery, standing up for yourself, and I think that makes it very political and current, and I'm just excited about people watching this film.
Samuel and Antonio, I have a question, and I want both of you to answer. What did each other give each other? In other words, Samuel, what did Antonio give you, and vice versa, that you didn't get the first time you worked together? What really changed in your dynamic that allowed you to be even better characters in this film? Go ahead, Juan.
Entonces, Samuel y Antonio, esta pregunta va para ustedes dos. ¿Qué consideran cada uno de ustedes que le dio el otro, o sea, Samuel, Antonio y viceversa, que quizás no tuvieron la primera vez que trabajaron juntos? ¿Cómo ha, digamos, crecido, evolucionado la dinámica entre ustedes y cómo se vio eso reflejado en sus personajes?
Está buena la pregunta. Yo creo que hay una maduración que sin duda pude percibir desde el trabajo que hicimos en el cortometraje con Antonio a enfrentarnos en la película. Hubo harto trabajo entre medio, entonces creo que eso lo pude percibir. La profesionalidad con la que Antonio enfrentó el personaje y cómo fuimos creando en conjunto también la complicidad que se tenía que sentir y ver en estos dos hombres que se van enamorando y que van teniendo este romance. Entonces creo que ahí hay una intensidad, una sensibilidad, una entrega también, una exposición bastante importante, y creo que por ahí va un poco lo que yo podría decir, que es bastante, que es harto, estos tres conceptos que me entregó Antonio y que me permitieron a mí trabajar. Finalmente los actores creo que lo que hacemos depende en una gran cantidad de lo que hace el compañero o la compañera, el otro actor o la otra actriz. Y en este caso creo que con Antonio el trabajo fue muy juntos, muy de a dos, con la guía de Omar, que creo que también es un tremendo director de actores, nos guió muy bien. Entonces, esos son como los ingredientes que yo creo que a mí al menos me sensibilizaron y me ayudaron bastante a poder jugar y poder actuar esta historia que está cargada de emoción y que es muy contenida además. Eso.
So I think that there's definitely been a sort of a maturing process that I could definitely perceive between, you know, the work that we did in the short and in the full length feature, right? And that has a lot to do because, you know, there was a lot of work that happened in between these two filmings, right? And so, for example, you know, the professionalism that Antonio displayed as he was, you know, interpreting this character allowed us also to have this sort of complicity or this complicitness that needed to exist between these two men who not only fall in love but also create a romance around it, right? And so there's definitely, you know, intensity, sensibility, surrender, right? This sort of exposing a lot of emotion. You know, Antonio really not only gave that but allowed the space for that to flourish, right? And so as actors, a lot of what we do depends on, and we feed off of what our other actor companions are doing, right? Our colleagues are doing. So this sort of portrayal of the characters was very much a two-person job, right? But I also have to say that, you know, Omar is a really good director for actors, right? And so he directs us really well. And so I think these are the ingredients that really you know, create the sensibility and really help act out this story that is so emotionally charged. ¿Y Antonio?
Y para complementar también lo que decía también Samuel, claro, por lo menos como yo considero la actuación no es solamente uno personalmente como piensa que está actuando solo, sino que está con un otro, está comunicando y por lo tanto tiene que crearse una comunicación con el compañero o la compañera, y en este caso con Samuel, que estábamos ambos como protagonistas interpretando una relación de amor, por lo tanto había que tener como base fundamental lo que fuéramos creando en conjunto, porque si no, no tenía ningún sentido crear esas químicas, y yo creo que eso es parte del mismo diálogo del proceso de estar en comunicación con toda la generosidad que también brindó Samuel, que también tenía mucho más experiencia en mucho más trabajos audiovisuales y en cine sobre todo, entonces eso también permitió tener mucho más, poder llegar mucho más a ciertas escenas y profundizando ciertos aspectos, y también sobre todo Omar nos da mucha libertad en poder, sobre todo creo yo, poder profundizar en escenas que quizás en el cine puede ser muy complejo de poder abordar, y yo creo que eso es muy maravilloso también. Creo que puede ser muy fácil mencionarlo con texto, pero yo creo que lo más complejo quizás es cómo sin decir ningún texto puedes tú estar también comunicando, y eso creo que es una gran labor que también, como decía Samuel, Omar lo venía trabajando muy bien, y eso hacía un trabajo bastante agradable de poder comunicar. Y también para mencionar y complementar también lo que decía Omar respecto a la pregunta de Dino, es muy importante lo que está pasando a nivel como embajadores, poder llamarlo de alguna manera, lo que está pasando con el cine chileno, y no solamente con el cine, sino que en todo el arte en general. Pero actualmente también hay que mencionar, aprovechando también este mismo espacio, que claro, está súper compleja la situación a nivel... en Chile se están recortando muchos presupuestos para seguir profundizando y generando más cine, y eso creo que también es importante mencionarlo, porque así como mencionaba Omar, que ha sido un momento muy positivo todo este cambio de poder pasar de una sala a estar haciendo todo lo que se tenía que estrenar originalmente en sala, a hacerlo online. Ha sido bien complejo poder seguir pensando cómo nos vamos proyectando a niveles como ecosistema cultural. En Chile está siendo bien complejo. Yo creo que no, en otras partes del mundo hay otras maneras muy concretas de apoyo a los artistas, y en Chile eso no está ocurriendo, y eso puede ser, y está coartando todo un proceso que se ha ganado con mucho tiempo, y eso es súper importante de poder mantenerlo y poder generar, sobre todo, las maneras de poder vincular y fortalecer eso que se ha ganado durante mucho tiempo con mucho esfuerzo.
Hey, Juan, we're doubling your salary. I just want you to know that we're not paying them, right?
No, you're not. I'm a volunteer. To complement a little bit about what someone was saying, at least for me, you know, I consider that acting is not necessarily something that you do by yourself, right? It's something that you very much do and feed off of your other counterparts, right? Your colleagues, because you're always creating this communication and this connection with your colleagues. And in this case with Samuel, you know, because we're both protagonists in this sort of relationship of love, it was critical to have this sort of baseline and rapport between us to make all of this possible. Or else, you know, if there wasn't any chemistry between us, then the characters would have never worked the way they did, right? And so I also have to highlight Samuel's generosity because, you know, he has a lot of audiovisual experience. He has a lot of, you know, film experience. And so, you know, he was really a supporting figure when it came to going deeper in the scenes and just improving and iterating upon them. Also, you know, Omar gave us a lot of liberty to go deeper on some scenes that, you know, can traditionally be very complex to act out for a film, right? So, you know, it and sort of being able to highlight the complexity of, without necessarily having to say anything, you know, we were able to communicate a lot in certain scenes, right? And so that particular aspect Omar had been working on for a while and was, you know, becoming very proficient at it, and it was a very enjoyable experience to be able to act out. I also want to compliment, you know, Omar's answer to Dino's previous question, because I think it's important to say that, you know, what's going on with Chilean, you know, film festival, or the Chilean film and art in general, right? It's important to mention that, you know, the situation in Chile right now is pretty complex, right? Budgets are being cut for, you know, support for the creation of new films, which is important to mention. And even though Omar mentioned that there's a very positive moment right now, you know, being able to transcend, say, the theater room, right, or the film room, and just make it online, it has also been complex to think about, you know, how are we going to project our future as a cultural ecosystem in Chile, right? I think that in several parts of the world, there are very concrete initiatives to support artists, and in Chile, maybe we're not seeing that so much, and it's beginning to stunt our artistic development. And so I think it's really important, you know, to be able to maintain everything that we've created as a country. And so I'm hoping that, you know, in the future we can a little bit reverse this trend.
So much great information. Go ahead.
Juan Francisco's translation is impeccable. It's really good. So, Juan Francisco, very good. Muy bueno. Muy buena la traducción.
Juan's getting the most kudos.
Can I ask?
So let me ask you a question from our executive director. I heard something. Oh.
No, I was just going to make another mark. Can you hear me? No.
Now you're cutting in and out, but go ahead. We got you now.
So yeah, I just wanted to say, particular to Omar, you know, it's so refreshing to see these movies coming out of Latin America. I mean, you know, we're not a monolith community. So, you know, LGBT stories that are coming out of Latin America and, you know, in different countries where they're doing really good work are so particularly special. And, you know, I just wonder what you feel you know, since you also work here in the US and you went to school here, how you feel with the gay stories and LGBT stories that are made, you know, in this country where many times are, you know, it's a minority within a minority. So in the US, you know, the gay minority within the Latino minority in the US. So I wonder if that is something that you know, when you make a movie in Chile, you know, a gay movie, you know, where you're all Chileans, you're not a minority in your country, does that, you know, do you see the differences? Do you see what, you know, the difference in the way of making a movie versus, you know, a gay story in the Latino community in the US?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think in the US I made a few shorts. I was part of like this collective feature film that was a very experimental project, and so I didn't. I guess I didn't explore, my life or my, I guess the things that I knew the closest to. I didn't get to explore while I was in there, obviously because of like cultural and national reasons. And one of the things that I wanted to do with this film was to write a love letter to a culture that I know that I love, that I feel close to, that I feel attached to, and a way of seeing the world. And I think that there's something like that's very Chilean about this film, the way that we behave, how we're not that talkative, how we express things, and I just feel very specific to my experience, and I really wanted that to feel authentic. And something that I was, I guess, very interested in was portraying our current cultural moment in terms of how people react to this relationship in this environment in the south of Chile. That's not the capital, that's not the most progressive, and how you see this range of reactions to their love and to their relationship. And I think that you can see that in the film, this idea that reactions range from, full support to questioning to clumsy rejection to some mysterious, threat that you see in one moment. So I feel like we wanted to give this authentic portrayal of what they would find in Chile today. So that was one thing, but something that I guess I haven't seen enough of is something that we wanted to work on, which is them fully going to this love without the presence of guilt or trauma or self-hate or like self-hatred or discovery. This is not a story of discovery. It's a story of love between people who know what they want, who know who they are, who know how they want to achieve it, and I really wanted that to be the case, because I don't think that we've seen enough stories like that. Stories where people, don't have hesitations as to who they are, and don't, and don't feel any kind of guilt or self-hatred. And I wish that would be the case, but we don't see it enough. And that's something that I feel was very important for us, because we want to see love stories where we see this, I guess, autonomy and freedom, and that's something that we wanted to celebrate and cherish, and it's something that I think is possible in Chile today, even though we're not the most open or the most progressive. I feel like the change starts in oneself, and how you see yourself, and how you love who you are, and how you put that out into the world. And that's something that we wanted to work on with this film.
Very, very well said. And I think you succeeded 100%. I'm going to ask a quick question of you guys from our executive director, Victor. He wants to know if any of you guys have ever been on a fishing boat. And Samuel, did you know any of the crew of the fishing boat? I know we talked a little bit about that off camera. So can you expand on that?
That would be Antonio, maybe, right? Yeah.
Oh, it's Antonio. Yeah, right. I'm sorry.
Llegué un par de semanas antes de, o sea, sinceramente no pescaba.
No.
O sea, no, pero me llegué un par de, o sea, unas 2 semanas antes del rodaje de empezar, estuve en contacto con algunos pescadores, particularmente para escenas muy concretas que tenía que hacer alguna actividad específica, que era una acción que era de mariscar, que se llama, que era sacar un molusco específico y que había que cortarlo, etc. Y también de entender también la cultura bastante machista que hay de los pescadores y cómo podría llegar a ser importante poder robar ciertos gestos, ciertos comportamientos, de cómo un pescador quizá no tan abiertamente gay puede decir soy gay en una comunidad bastante machista al respecto. Y en ese sentido, ese fue como un poco el tema, pero fue bastante agradable poder también entrar en contacto con algunos pescadores en realidad. Y también había hecho otro estudio también en un lugar donde, en el más al sur de Chile, con otros pescadores de una ciudad que se llama Puerto Natales también, donde ahí también pude, sobre todo, ver cómo los comportamientos, lo que se trabaja, algunas acciones, la escena del barco fue bastante aguerrida en el sentido de estar participando de un proceso donde claramente habían otros pescadores, donde estábamos también haciendo un ejercicio que es bastante complejo. La vida del pescador también es bien arriesgada, sacrificada, y también a veces pueden ganar mucho dinero y gastarlo en muchos lugares, a veces los que no tienen familia, etcétera. Entonces, en ese sentido, fui también investigando un poco más, sobre todo conductas sociales que a la película le podrían ser de utilidad en realidad. Pero no, de pescar no tenía experiencia como pescador.
Juan, make your money.
So no, I did not know how to fish from before, but I arrived to the filming location about 2 weeks before, and because of that, I was able to be in contact with a lot of fishermen as I was preparing some very specific scenes, right? I was practicing or learning how to do some very specific activities that had to do with fishing for shellfish, right? Like taking out a certain mollusk, cutting it in a certain way, etc., right? And it was also important to understand, this pretty sexist or chauvinistic culture that can exist between fishermen, right? And how it was important for me to be able to draw on certain, say, remarks or gestures that a fisherman, maybe who is not so openly gay, could say, hey, I'm gay in a community that's not so open about it, right? So it was really nice to be in contact with the fishermen. And as I was preparing for the role, I'd also studied further south in Chile, in a place called Puerto Natales, in the very, very far south of Chile, with other fishermen. And overall, I got to really understand or get a better insight into their behavior, on what their life is. And the boat scene in particular was a very difficult scene to participate in this process, where there were other fishermen, because the life of a fisherman is full of risks. There's a lot of sacrifice in it, and there are times where they can make a lot of money, and those who don't necessarily have a family can really splurge, right? And so I was really investigating sort of these social behaviors or patterns that could be of use for this character. But when it comes to fishing, no fishing at all.
Well, you guys have all been fascinating. I must say, this was a terrific interview. Juan, you blow us all away. Thank you so much for the incredible translation. Let's close out real quickly from all of you and just see, Samuel, what do you have going in your career?
Entonces, Samuel, como última pregunta de cierre, ¿qué se viene ahora para tu carrera? Cuéntanos un poco.
Right now, I know it's so hard with the virus, it makes it muy difícil, pero what do you have going? Don't laugh at me, Dino. Samuel?
Ahí está. Estoy incursionando en la dirección, que es algo que me gusta mucho, y estoy terminando un cortometraje que escribí, dirigí y grabé una parte en Cuba y otra parte acá en Valdivia por una beca que gané para ir a estudiar a Cuba, y estoy ahí incursionando en eso, aprendiendo mucho, estoy tomando clases de guión también, así que espero pronto seguir dirigiendo y aprendiendo y estrenar también muy pronto este cortometraje que me gusta mucho y me tiene muy emocionado, aprendiendo un montón. Así que por ese lado voy. Y actualmente hay cosas que se vienen, pero que no puedo adelantar aún, así que ya se verán en su momento.
Okay, Juan.
Yeah, so personally, I've been sort of doing my incursions towards being a director. I really like it, and I am actually finishing a short film that I wrote, I directed, and I recorded part of it in Cuba and the other part in Valdivia. And that was thanks to a scholarship or a fellowship that I won to be able to study in Cuba. And so I've also been taking screenwriting classes, so I hope to soon be able to be directing and releasing this short film that I've been working on that I really like, that has me really excited and has me learning a ton. Now, as an actor, I'm working on a few things that it's still too soon to be able to share more about, but keep an eye out for me because you'll be seeing more of me soon.
Bueno, ¿y Antonio?
Y yo en realidad, en la mayoría de los proyectos, sobre todo de teatro, que tenía de trabajo, se postergaron, bueno, por toda la pandemia para 2021, pero yo también trabajo en un festival de artes que realizamos en la Patagonia que se llama Cielos del Infinito, donde es un festival donde programamos teatro, danza, circo, arte urbana, entre otras disciplinas. Y estamos tratando de ahora, ojalá que en noviembre, diciembre, enero, pensando en cómo poder llegar a lo presencial, acompañando mucho el rediseño de pensando también en los trabajos para la tercera edad, para volver a un poco a la lógica de la presencialidad cuando las condiciones sanitarias también lo permitan. Y también haciendo mucha militancia ahora, acompañando mucho a muchos compañeras y compañeros que han perdido su trabajo, haciendo apoyando muchas campañas de cajas solidarias. Hay muchos compañeros, como decía anteriormente, que nos lo estamos pasando muy bien, sobre todo en ámbito de teatro, del mismo, incluso en el mismo área del cine. El sector de la pandemia a nivel latinoamericano es distinto a lo que pasaba en Europa y quizá incluso en Estados Unidos, quizá, pero la situación es bastante compleja. Hay muchos compañeras y compañeros y sobre todo también, quizás en términos personales, puedo dar ese apoyo en este momento, pero estamos sobre todo pensando en la presencialidad y cómo apoyar a muchas compañeras y compañeros que no lo están pasando para nada bien, que sobre todo tienen familia, muchos teatros que están cerrados en este momento, entonces estamos tratando de hacer mucha militancia al respecto porque actualmente no, estamos en un no gobierno en Chile, y eso es muy importante también que se sepa, no ha sido, la institucionalidad no ha tenido la altura, bueno, no es tan distinto quizá la situación de Estados Unidos, pero en realidad sí, aquí se vuelve más complejo porque la cantidad de presupuesto no es la más óptima, por lo tanto hay que estar, si ya culturalmente el sistema artístico está precarizado, hoy en día está mucho más violentado y eso lo vuelve muy complejo. Entonces, eso, pero esperemos que también esto sea por lo menos pasajero y estamos también reinventando muchas cosas para 2021. Ojalá.
So, for me, most of my projects, work related around theater, have been put on hold because of the pandemic until 2021. And so I also work for an art festival in Patagonia called Skies of the Infinite, translation of the name, which is all about theater, dance, urban arts, and several other things. So hopefully, come November, December, January, we can go back to sort of more being in person, right? And so we're also accompanying that with some redesign that's meant for senior citizens, right? So hopefully we can come back to being in person as soon as possible. I've also been engaged in a lot of activism, especially around other colleagues that have lost their jobs, right? So I've been supporting, with solidarity funds and, supporting other colleagues in this industry that have not been, being able to ride out this crisis in the best way, right? Especially in theater and in film. The pandemic at a Latin American level has maybe been, we've reacted differently than, say, Europe, right? And so the situation has become pretty complex. In personal terms, we are trying to come back to in-person gatherings and events as soon as possible, and we're also supporting a lot of our colleagues who have families and whose place of work, right, their theaters that they work in are currently closed. So there's definitely a lot of activism around this topic. And, it's also worth mentioning that in many ways, there is non-government in Chile right now. Say our institutions have not, been up to speed and been able to react in a sufficient way to keep a lot of us, afloat, right? And so this is where the situation just becomes more and more complex because, there isn't an optimal amount of funds available. So even though, the whole art ecosystem was in bad shape before, it's getting much worse, so it's becoming very complex. So hopefully, we can ride this out, and we're trying to reinvent plenty for 2021.
Muchas gracias, Juan Francisco. Muchas gracias.
Omar, how about yourself, Omar? You must have some stuff going on. I know the virus has changed the landscape a lot, but I'm sure you have some work in progress.
Yeah, well, I earlier this year I was invited to direct this kind of like experimental strange film in New York at the NYU graduate acting program. We did this workshop with the actors who were doing their MFA, and it was a great experience. And that hopefully will become this very this strange project that I'm excited about, but that might come, over the next year maybe. But it's something that we shot, and that I would love for it to be available for people in some way. And we have a production company, me and two other partners, called Cine Estación, that we're based in Santiago. And next year we're planning on shooting two first-time director feature films that we've been, setting up for a while. And we were going to shoot one of them, this August, but obviously it was not going to be possible. So hopefully we'll be able to shoot those next year. But we create films from here, and we're excited about sharing those stories.
Well, thank you. This Q&A, as well as all of our Q&As, will reside on our Outshine YouTube channel. Thank you for being part of the Outshine Virtual Film Festival. We're so happy to have all of you guys here. Director Omar Zuniga, actors Samuel González and Antonio Altamirano. So thank you guys so much for everything, and make sure you know that there are more films coming. We have Friday, Saturday, Sunday films, and films that you'll be able to watch both ahead and behind the festival, as well as coming up in Miami in April, hopefully, if this virus ever freaking goes away. And we're in Fort Lauderdale, and more virtual film festivals and a lot of fun stuff coming from the Outshine Film Festival. Good night, everybody, and thank you so much.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Thanks, Mark. Dino, Juan Francisco.
Muchas gracias, Juan Francisco, Mike, Dino, Antonio, Omar.
Chao.
¿Cómo estuvo el viaje?
Bien. ¿Para cuándo tienes pasaje? El 23.
Hola.
Hola. ¿Te ayudo?
Bueno.
¿Estuviste en el mar?
Sí, un par de días.
Yo no venía para acá hace un par de años. Gracias. ¿A Canadá? Con una beca que me salió.
Quédate acá mejor.
Ese hombre es mío.
dónde saliste tú?
De acá.